Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Big Ten Under 10 on the Hoosier Network. Adam Oppenheim with Graham Nash. It was an interesting week in women's sports across the Big Ten. Let's start with some hoops. The first-ranked team in the country, UCLA, continued to roll as they beat Penn State 83-67 and Baylor 72-57. Fourth-ranked USC had their match postponed against Northwestern early last week, so they played just one game. They took care of Indiana in Bloomington in a thriller, 73-66. The eighth-ranked Maryland Terrapins got blown out by number 7 Texas, 89-51 at home. 27 turnovers for the Terps was a big reason for the dominant win for the Longhorns. Number 12 Ohio State had an interesting week in the Big Ten. First, they took care of business on the road against Wisconsin, 80-69. However, a stunner last Sunday as Penn State knocked off the Buckeyes 62-59. That was the Nittany Lions' first conference win this season. Michigan State, ranked 21st, picked up two huge road wins in the Big Ten. First, they defeated Rutgers 70-60, and then against the surging Illini, won 86-68. 23rd-ranked Minnesota got a big bounce-back win on the road against Northwestern, 87-62. Last Big Ten team in the top 25 was number 24 Michigan. They picked up two more wins in conference play. The Wolverines beat Washington 82-69 and then Rutgers 87-61. Before we get into the discussion about what happened in the past week on the court, we have Graham Nash at the board breaking down some film of a couple big games in the Big Ten.
Thanks, Adam. There were two massive games played last week in the Big Ten. I'm going to break down what led to the results that we saw on our screens. First, number 7 Texas smashed number 8 Maryland, and it was because of how well the Longhorns broke down the Terrapins' defense. Here's the first play that I'm going to run you through. Texas has the ball top of the key, and you can see immediately that there are some problems with how things are looking here. There's two Longhorns players already behind the 2-3 zone, and when that happens, it's just so easy to lose who you're guarding. And you can even see a Maryland Terrapin right there pointing in this direction saying, hey, keep your eyes on every single player, and that just didn't really happen throughout this whole contest. As the play progresses, you've got one player, Madison Booker, sneak inside and then just drill a short corner jumper. It was a beautiful play, and the Terrapins just didn't have a response for any of it. They tried switching from that zone defense to more of a woman-on-woman, player-on-player, but even that didn't work. Here's a similar play. The Longhorns did a good job of getting out of trouble. The Terrapins kind of trapped them in that far corner, but again, their ability to stretch the floor was phenomenal in this game. They move it all the way around, and you can see, I'll back it up even, you can see this is, again, Madison Booker even sneaking. She's like hiding behind the defenders. She doesn't want to be seen, and if we go forward a little bit, once again, you've got a Terrapin player pointing her direction saying, hey guys, there's someone that got away. We need to make sure that we get this player picked up. And once again, that didn't happen. So if we just roll it, Booker sneaks inside, short corner jumper, butter. The second game that I'm going to break down is Penn State's upset over the 9th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. Both of these teams were at the top of their games in the Happy Valley, and it was because they were able to establish their presence down low and then drain some big threes around the horn. First play, Penn State getting it down to their star, Gracie Merkel. She's been phenomenal in her first year with the team. She gets the ball down low, and instantly the defense of Ohio State just pinches. And that leaves open 1, 2, 3 players to kind of slowly back up, get themselves out of the way. And the second Merkel turns to pass this ball, a shot probably could have been taken here. Instead, it's going to be an unselfish pass to Mariah Murray, one of the best three-point shooters on this Penn State team. And when you get it to your best shooter, it's likely that they're going to make it. Murray drills the triple. And on the other side of the ball, Ohio State was doing something similar. Here you've got a great play where they drive inside, kick it out. Again, we'll back it up actually a little bit. Notice how the second a player drives, all three of those Penn State players pinch. You probably could have gotten away with Murray just following along with Madison Green, who drove under the hoop. But because every single player came along, they get a wide open shot from Cody McMahon, and she, like Mariah Murray, just drills it. Now, the last play I'll show you was the game-winning, or nearly a game-winning play. This was actually what sealed it for Penn State. Penn State just has to get it across the timeline. Gabby Elliott is trapped, and she sees right here, after she picks up her dribble, she sees a wide open teammate in Allie Campbell, but what she doesn't see is McMahon sprinting to intercept this ball like a defensive back, and sure enough, she catches up to it, and then Penn State, only up by 3, somehow leaves a wide open look in the corner for Gray, but she just couldn't hit it. So Ohio State, they had a chance to force overtime. They just couldn't quite do it. Now, Maryland's loss is frankly a bad sign. They lost Bree McDaniel, who's one of their most talented guards, to a season-ending ACL tear. So the fact that they lost by 48 to a team that's unranked, to a team that's one spot above them in the ranking is not a good look. However, the Nittany Lions, they might have life now. The win against Ohio State marks their first top 10 win since 2012 and their first conference win of the season. For the Buckeyes, I don't think it's time to panic yet. They just need to tighten the screws on some of those defensive plays before hosting the Maryland Terrapins Thursday night. Adam?
Great stuff, Graham. A huge win for Penn State against Ohio State. Welcome back to the desk, Graham. I want to get your thoughts on a couple other Big Ten games this week. Let's start in the battle in Bloomington between USC and Indiana.
Yeah, it was a close one. Ironically, Juju Watkins didn't play her best. I think you see the result. You see kind of how USC has progressed. You'd expect a big game from Juju Watkins. She only shot 37.5% from the field, which that's her third worst shooting percentage in a game this season. She did still score 22 points, so it's not like she wasn't producing. But what was scary about this result is that every single USC starter was in double digits. The concern is there were 0 bench points for this USC team. Don't know how that happens, but every single starter had 10-plus points. Of course, Juju Watkins led with 22. So that's kind of where I see the biggest upside and the biggest downside for this USC team right now is their starters are phenomenal. They've got 2 of the best players in basketball with Juju Watkins and Kiki Iriafen, but can the bench pick up the slack when the starters aren't playing well? That's going to be what you need to watch for going down as the rest of the season progresses. For Indiana, they had a great showing, but they missed every big shot down the stretch that they needed to hit. You just can't do that if you want to beat one of the best teams in the country. They had some great individual performances. Sydney Parrish had a double-double. 4 of 5 starters were in double digits for Indiana, but they just couldn't quite get the job done, and it was an impressive win from USC.
Indiana's still looking for a big win for a resume booster for the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about the best team in the country, or the number 1 team in the country, I should say. UCLA, still undefeated. How have they been so successful this season?
They do the little things really well. It's like they're so well coached, and I think that's what it comes down to. If you look at their statistics, they lead the Big Ten in rebounds per game, assists per game, and field goal percentage. So they are really doing a good job sharing the ball. They're doing a good job of rebounding when maybe their offense isn't as good as it needs to be to just blow a team out, which they've been doing for a large part of the year, so they are good at blowing teams out. But they just do all the little things really well. Now, will they be able to do that against, say, a USC or a South Carolina? Who knows? Because they've been just, like I said, kind of blowing teams out. It's been close a couple times, but for the most part, they've been dominant. We'll see what happens as the season keeps going.
Yeah, and UCLA will face USC in the coming weeks. So let's switch gears, and we're going to be back with our second week covering women's swim and dive in the Big Ten. Here are the scores. UCLA had a rough couple meets as they lost to Stanford 188-111 and Cal 187-106. USC had similar problems as they dropped to Stanford 207-92 and Cal 185-115. Illinois lost a close match to Iowa 151-149. And it didn't get much better for the Illini as they were defeated by the Cornhuskers 174.5-125.5. Minnesota had a non-conference matchup against Arizona and dropped a close meet 156-144. Penn State hosted a couple non-conference opponents but ended up losing both meets. First, it was Princeton winning 177-122, and then Virginia Tech defeated the Nittany Lions 216-84. Back in conference play, Michigan defeated longtime rival Ohio State 197.5-102.5. Lastly, Wisconsin took care of Northwestern 205.5-93.5. And that wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Big thanks to our producer, Colin Dusek, for making this all possible. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at B1G_under10. And come back next week for our next episode of Big Ten Under 10.